Atari 5200. Atari had gaming's throne in the early 80s, but stumbled badly with the Atari 5200. Designed to succeed the iconic 2600, it promised superior graphics and better gameplay. Unfortunately, the launch was plagued by hardware disasters. Controllers were flimsy, breaking easily or barely working from day one, leaving frustrated players desperate for replacements. Adding insult to injury, the 5200 wasn't even compatible with beloved 2600 games, alienating Atari's massive fanbase right from the start. Marketing confusion made matters worse. Consumers weren't even clear if this was an upgrade or a totally new system. Gamers rejected the pricey console, sales tanked, and Atari's dominance quickly eroded. Despite attempting damage control, Atari never fully recovered from this disastrous debut. The 5200 remains notorious as the first major console launch disaster, teaching the industry a harsh lesson about hardware reliability and consumer trust. Even today, Atari's fall from grace with the 5200 symbolizes the risk of rushing unready tech to market. Virtual Boy. Nintendo is legendary for innovation, but sometimes experimentation goes horribly wrong, like with the infamous Virtual Boy. Promising mind-blowing 3D gameplay, Nintendo's odd headset launched amid massive hype. Instead, gamers got headaches, eye strain, and nausea from staring at glaring red monochrome graphics. Awkward tripod-mounted hardware made playing uncomfortable and limited mobility, directly contradicting Nintendo's family-friendly image. To make things worse, the Virtual Boy had almost no quality launch games, leaving players quickly bored and frustrated. Public backlash was swift and brutal. Gamers mocked the device while parents worried about health issues. Within months, Nintendo discontinued the Virtual Boy entirely, making it one of gaming's quickest flops. The system's utter failure became a running joke in gaming history, tarnishing Nintendo's previously impeccable track record. Today, the Virtual Boy stands as a cautionary tale. Innovation needs practical execution, or even gaming giants can experience humiliating missteps. Nintendo learned a hard lesson, ensuring future hardware prioritized comfort and fun above flashy gimmicks. Sega Saturn. Sega Saturn should have been a hit, but Sega botched the launch spectacularly. Originally planned for a holiday season release to compete head-on with Sony's PlayStation, Sega impulsively rushed the Saturn into stores months early without proper preparation. Retailers were blindsided, and many refused to carry the unexpected early shipment, severely limiting availability. Developers were furious, unprepared to launch their games ahead of schedule, resulting in a disastrously thin launch lineup. Gamers faced steep prices. Saturn was $100 more expensive than the PlayStation, making it unappealing. Sony jumped on this confusion, swiftly positioning PlayStation as a superior, consumer-friendly option. Sega's reckless strategy backfired horribly, crippling Saturn's momentum from the start. Public perception quickly turned sour, seeing Sega as unreliable and chaotic. Though Saturn later built a respectable library, the catastrophic launch had already doomed it to fall far behind the PlayStation juggernaut. Sega's rushed Saturn launch remains infamous, illustrating how mismanagement and poor timing can irreversibly damage even promising consoles. Nokia Engage. The Nokia Engage aimed to revolutionize mobile gaming, but instead became gaming's biggest joke. Attempting to merge cell phone and handheld console, Nokia overlooked basic user experience. Players literally had to remove the battery just to swap games. Awkward and inconvenient. Phone calls required holding the device sideways, dubbed by gamers as the taco phone, instantly killing its credibility. Engage games lacked depth and struggled with cramped controls, alienating dedicated gamers who expected a handheld rival Nintendo's Game Boy Advance. Nokia ambitiously marketed it as a sophisticated gaming phone, but gamers saw through the hype. Launch sales were awful, barely making a dent against Nintendo's dominance. Within months, retailers discontinued the Engage heavily, acknowledging its flop status. Despite a redesign, Nokia never shook the device's embarrassing reputation. Engage's failure starkly demonstrated the dangers of ignoring consumer needs and focusing purely on gimmicks. Today, the Engage symbolizes one of the gaming's worst ever launch miscalculations, permanently etched as a lesson in poor design choices. Xbox 360. Microsoft's Xbox 360 became hugely successful, but first, it endured one of gaming's worst ever launch crises. Within weeks of its release, gamers faced the notorious Red Ring of Death. Catastrophic hardware failures causing consoles to brick completely. Massive frustration erupted online, tarnishing Microsoft's reputation overnight. Desperate to contain backlash, Microsoft scrambled, promising free repairs and replacements costing the company over $1 billion.
Gamers waited months, stuck without their expensive new consoles, while Microsoft struggled to stabilize the issue. Though Microsoft eventually resolved hardware flaws, regaining consumer trust took years. Xbox 360's eventual success didn't erase the trauma of those early months, permanently embedding the Red Ring into gaming culture as an infamous failure moment. Microsoft learned tough lessons about rushing hardware to market, vastly improving quality assurance for future consoles. Xbox 360's botched launch remains an essential reminder. No matter how powerful your system, reliability is king. Gamers still vividly remember the Red Ring's devastating impact on gaming's 7th generation.
PlayStation 3. Sony dominated with PlayStation 2, but arrogance doomed the PlayStation 3 launch from day one. Announcing the system's price at a shocking $599, Sony alienated core gamers immediately. Confusing marketing bragged about the PS3's complex cell processor, yet offered little explanation of practical benefits to gamers. The launch lineup was notoriously weak, lacking must-have exclusives. Supply shortages created panic, scalpers thrived, and gamers became frustrated. Developers struggled with PS3's complicated architecture, resulting in inferior ports of multi-platform games compared to the cheaper Xbox 360. Sony seemed oblivious, dismissively telling consumers they'd happily work extra hours just to afford their console. Initial sales were underwhelming, and Sony's reputation suffered significantly. Only years later, after deep price cuts and quality exclusives like Uncharted and The Last of Us, did PlayStation 3 recover. However, the damage from its troubled launch lingered. Sony's miscalculations serve as a stark lesson. No console, regardless of brand loyalty, can escape the consequences of arrogance and poor consumer communication. Ouya. Ouya's ambitious Kickstarter promised gamers an affordable, open-source Android console. Hype soared, fueled by crowdfunding records and bold claims of revolutionizing the gaming industry. Unfortunately, reality quickly set in at launch. Ouya's cheap build quality felt flimsy and disappointing, with poorly designed controllers breaking easily. The promised flood of indie games turned into a weak trickle of mediocre mobile ports. Gamers expecting innovative exclusives found the library frustratingly limited and uninspired. Critical backlash was swift, labeling Ouya as gimmicky vaporware rather than revolutionary. Initial backers felt betrayed, seeing promises vanish into thin air. Sales crashed almost immediately after launch, retailers rapidly dropping the device. Despite later efforts, Ouya never recovered from its disastrous start. Its failed launch showed that crowdfunding hype alone can't sustain consoles without compelling content or reliable hardware. Today, Ouya is remembered primarily as a cautionary tale, symbolizing the consequences of promising more innovation than you can realistically deliver. The ambitious but flawed console remains an infamous failure in gaming history. Wii U. Nintendo struck gold with the Wii, but disastrously confused consumers with the Wii U launch. Shoppers mistakenly assumed Wii U's tablet controller was merely a Wii accessory, not a new console. Nintendo's marketing failed spectacularly, struggling to clarify basic distinctions between Wii and Wii U. Weak launch games compounded problems, offering little incentive to upgrade. Initial sales were dramatically lower than expected, causing panic among retailers and developers alike. The Wii U's strange tablet controller baffled gamers, creating skepticism about its purpose and utility. Major third-party developers quickly abandoned the platform, leaving Nintendo isolated and struggling. Though the Wii U eventually received beloved games like Super Mario Maker and Splatoon, its terrible launch had already damaged its reputation. Nintendo learned painful lessons, ultimately applying them to successfully launch the Switch. The Wii U serves as a stark reminder, even the most beloved gaming companies must communicate clearly and deliver compelling reasons to adopt new hardware. Confusion kills console momentum faster than any competitor possibly could. Google Stadia. Google Stadia promised revolutionary cloud-based gaming, claiming powerful gaming without expensive hardware. Yet, Stadia's launch was catastrophically mishandled. Many promised features were absent at launch, causing immediate backlash and disappointment. Performance varied drastically based on internet connection quality, frequently resulting in laggy, unenjoyable experiences. Initial game libraries were slim, and the pricing structure confused players who expected a Netflix-like subscription but found individual games required separate purchases. Gamers felt misled by Google's vague messaging and overambitious claims, resulting in severe credibility damage. Stadia quickly became gaming's punchline, mocked widely for overpromising and under-delivering. Within months, Stadia lost substantial support from developers and gamers alike. Google eventually shut down Stadia completely, admitting failure. Stadia's disastrous launch profoundly harmed public confidence in cloud gaming. The platform's demise serves as a stark warning about ensuring clear communication, realistic promises, and reliable technology. Stadia's failure vividly underscores gaming's intolerance for half-baked launches, regardless of corporate size or ambition. PlayStation 5. Sony's PlayStation 5 launch, while commercially successful, stumbled through chaotic pre-orders that frustrated gamers worldwide. After a flashy reveal event, Sony promised advance notice before pre-orders opened, but instead, retailers jumped the gun, causing confusion and panic buying. Websites crashed, scalpers dominated inventory, and legitimate fans faced empty shelves and inflated resale prices reaching triple retail value. The mess generated widespread anger online as gamers vented about Sony's poor communication and mishandled distribution. Even months after launch, supply remained severely limited, elevating gamer frustration. To make things worse, many early units experienced technical glitches, from noisy fans to storage errors, tarnishing the premium experience Sony promised. Although the PlayStation 5 eventually stabilized and secured strong sales, its initial chaotic rollout remains a clear warning about the importance of transparency and effective communication. Today, PS5's launch is remembered not just for record-breaking demand, but for the turmoil and stress it brought to dedicated fans desperately chasing their next-gen dreams. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.